So, we're learning the Gemara Brachos Daf Zayin, and the Gemara has been discussing the daily anger of Hashem. It says, Keil Zoim B'chol Yom. And God's anger every day is, for a moment, 158,888th of an hour. And that's every day. One insight in this pasuk, this verse which the Talmud quotes, Keil Zoim B'chol Yom, is that the name Keil, God of course has many names, and the name of God, Keil, is generally associated with chesed, with kindness. And so what does it mean then that we say, God, the source of kindness, expresses wrath every day for a brief moment? And that is, kindness means bringing forth positivity. In order to bring forth positivity, you have to have that discipline, that channeling force, the gevuras that are going to help channel, that are going to make possible that chesed, the intent of Keil, of God, who wants to bring forth the creation of the world, wants to bring forth chesed. And of course, Yom, the days, might refer to Yemei Bereshis, the days of creation, that is Keil Zoim B'chol Yom. Through every step of the process of creation, there is the requirement. Creation, of course, is an act of it's a generative act, it's a positive act, but that requires gevura. It requires the strictness. Strictness, gevuras can have this outcome, can have a consequence that they produce anger, they produce strictness, they produce haughtiness, all these kinds of qualities. But, and this, the Gemara continues, V'zuhi rega, and this is a moment. No created being can identify that precise moment, chutz mi Bilam harasha, with the exception of Bilam, the wicked Bilam. Dichsiv be v'yodei adas elyon, he knew the mind of the Most High, of Hashem. And as we explained, that in order for a person to identify the precise dosage, the precise amount that's required to really get it right, that ingredient of gevura, that ingredient of harshness, which is required in order to produce anything, it's very hard to identify that precise moment, that precise dosage. At least that's how I understand it. But the Gemara says, how is it that Bilam was able to know this? Except Bilam was able to do this. And we explained that Bilam's identifying this precise moment of divine anger means that he would take out of context things, let's say, in the creative process. This ingredient of harshness is part of Keil, it's part of the creative force. But when taken out of context, then it is purely negative. And that's the work of Bilam. Bilam would highlight and identify negativity, taking it out of the context of the creative process in which it finds itself. The Gemara questions, how could we say that Bilam has such an insight to be able to identify this precise moment? Hashta, Das behemto lo hava yoda. Das elyon hava yoda. Did he know? He didn't know the mind of his own animal. How could we say that he knew the mind of the Most High? The Gemara goes on to explain that it tells us rather that he was able to identify the moment that Hashem was expressing anger, but not that he actually knew the mind of the Most High. He didn't really know Hashem. He was just able to identify this specific element when it would show up. And the Gemara, in a parenthetical statement, says, we said that Bilam didn't know the mind of his own animal. What does that mean, he didn't know the mind of his own animal? And the Gemara interprets the conversation that Bilam has with his donkey when the donkey finally spoke, interprets this dialogue between Bilam and his donkey, and inserts kind of implications behind this. My das behemto, what does it mean, the mind of his animal, of his donkey? The Amrile, the elders of Moab, said to him, "My time asusaya, why did you not ride on a horse?" Amar Lahu, he said to them, Bilam said to the elders of Moab, of Midian, Berutiva shadoila, I left my horse in the field, it was grazing, and I wasn't expecting to be called, and all I had handy was my donkey, which is why I'm riding my donkey. And immediately the donkey, Hashem opens the mouth of the donkey, and now we have this pasuk, which the Gemara intersperses interpretations. Amralei, the donkey said to Bilam, "Halo anochi asonecha, I am your donkey. This is not you don't have a horse." But Te'ino ba'alma, so he says, "No, you just use the donkey to carry things." Asher ochavto alai, the pasuk says, "You said that you ride me." That is, the donkey says to Bilam, "Don't say that you only use me for carrying things. You ride the donkey." Akroi ba'alma, so Bilam said, "I only use it from time to time." So the pasuk goes on to insert the next thing that the donkey says, "Me'odcha yom hazeh," from the moment of your existence to this very day. V'lo od, says the donkey, "Ela sha'isa osa imi mase ishus balayla," you treated me as your wife at night. The donkey says to Bilam. Kesiv hachaz, the pasuk says, "Ha'iskein niskanti uksiv hasam vatihilo sochanes," that the pasuk brings a comparative text that indicates that the word ha'askein hiskanti, which here means "was I accustomed to treat you this way," also implies some kind of familiarity and closeness of intimacy. But the upshot of this whole text is that the donkey is catching Bilam by surprise. And this allowed me to understand, perhaps, what the implication of this Gemara is. Das behemta lo hava yoda, Bilam doesn't know the mind of his own animal. The Mishlei tells us, Yodea tzadik nefesh behemto, a righteous person knows or must know the mind of his own animal. And this suggests the difference between what it is that Bilam was able to do and what he was missing. Bilam was not aware, did not, meaning we're describing that he didn't know his donkey, but the meaning behind that might be that he doesn't know his own animalistic urges and impulses. He doesn't have a healthy self-knowledge. And this then is the Gemara's question. If he doesn't have a healthy self-knowledge, how is it possible for him to know the mind of the Most High? And the answer is he doesn't know the mind of the Most High. All he knows is specific elements. And this is a very important concept, that when we identify Hashem doing something, it's important that we associate the thing that happened with the source that it comes from. That is, the work of an Oved Hashem, the work of a servant of Hashem, is to put everything in its divine context. And in the true divine context, nothing is ever left out. Everything is part of Hashem's will, is part of Hashem's plan. And our work is to frame everything within that divine context. Bilam, in a cynical way and in a nefarious way, takes things out of context. And this is what the Gemara points out. He's not even able to assimilate his own animalistic nature, which is, why must a righteous person know his animal? Because he has to know how to use it and how to bring it into his divine work. But if Bilam never considers his own animal, how is it possible? How can we claim that he knows Hashem? And the answer is he doesn't know Hashem. He only knows things that Hashem does. He only is able to identify the world. He's able to identify these elements in the world, take them out of context, either cynically taking them out of context or lacking the important context, which is that even negativity has an appropriate place in Keil B'chol Yom, in the creations of Hashem every day. And I just want to conclude. Yesterday, I was asked a question which was very helpful, and I want to share it with you. It seems strange that Bilam is not surprised by the fact that his donkey talks. And, we are surprised by his lack of surprise. Well, the answer is, if somebody has a healthy sense of self-knowledge and is examining themselves and is asking, how am I bringing myself into my divine work? Then he might be surprised and shocked by the behavior of his animal. But if a person is not even thinking, They're acting only instinctively and reactively. And they're just taking it as it comes. And the behavior of their animal is not something that they ever examine. So then when the animal speaks, and of course the story as the Gemara is characterizing the speech of the donkey is that it's embarrassing Bilam. He wouldn't be embarrassed. The animal does what it does, and it's not part of any mission. It's not part of any direction. And therefore he's not surprised by an unexpected turn.